The Kane Pixels Backrooms movie is coming out soon, and it made me really think about the Backrooms because I haven't in a while. I used to love the Backrooms back in the day, I love liminal spaces and all that kind of thing, and now that the movie's coming out, I figure it's a pretty good time to revisit this concept. I need to review myself before seeing the movie, it's been a couple of years now, and I figured I'll make a video about it. So, welcome to the horrors of the Backrooms. I'm technically going to be following a iceberg for this video, so it should get more disturbing and interesting and obscure as we go on. And shout out my friend Dylan for making this iceberg for me. Awesome dude. Be sure to follow my Instagram if you want to, join my Discord so we can hang out, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We just hit 300k, thank you so much guys. Road to 500 now, I'm so hyped. Let's get into this. Also, one last disclaimer, I'm gonna be explaining some pretty basic stuff of the Backrooms just so people who are watching who don't know much about it will understand, but you know, feel free to skip ahead, just double tap the screen or just skip a few minutes if I'm explaining something that you already know. Sorry about that, I just have to for everybody else. Anyway, first let's talk about the original 4chan post. On May 12th, 2019, someone on 4chan's paranormal board started a thread by asking people to post images that just felt off. One of the replies was a photo, big yellow room, fluorescent lights, gross carpet, and another user responded to it with a short paragraph. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. And that was it. The post itself only got a handful of replies. It wasn't until someone reposted it with the photo attached that it started spreading. The guy who wrote it, who goes by Black August, found out that it had blown up completely by accident after seeing a Backrooms video thumbnail on YouTube. He had never even gone back to check if the post had any replies. As for the photo itself, it was traced back in 2024 to a renovation blog from 2003 documenting the construction of a Hobbytown hobby shop in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is pretty crazy. I mean, one of the most unsettling images on the internet is just a guy documenting a water-damaged room at a model car store, but it made history. Next, I have to explain liminal spaces. The Backrooms and liminal spaces as a concept are pretty intertwined. So liminal spaces are an internet aesthetic, one of those things that's a lot easier to recognize than define. The images are usually of places like empty school hallways, hotel corridors, parking garages at night, shopping malls before they open, places that are normally full of people but now completely emptied out. The word liminal comes from the Latin for threshold, meaning that these are transitional spaces, places that you pass through rather than stay in. Basically a limbo dimension is how I kind of see it. The reason they tend to feel unsettling is that your brain has a strong sense of what these places are supposed to look like, and when the people are gone, something registers as wrong even if you can't articulate why. I'm sure personally that there's also a lot of nostalgia involved in these. Researchers have compared it to an uncanny valley effect, but for architecture, like familiar places that subtly deviate from what you'd expect. And getting deeper into the nostalgia thing, what made liminal spaces take off as an internet aesthetic really is about that. A lot of these images feature architecture and decor from the 90s and early 2000s, which is when most of the people sharing them were growing up. So there's this combination of childhood familiarity and wrongness happening at the same time, like an empty Toys R Us or a water park closed for the season or a school gym with the lights off. By late 2022, the r/liminal space subreddit had over 500,000 members, and the TikTok #liminal spaces hashtag had over 2 billion views. The Backrooms didn't start the aesthetic exactly, but it is what became the most well-known example of it, and it helped it push into the mainstream. Basically, the way that I see it is the Backrooms took the liminal space aesthetic and then mainstreamified it so that everybody could enjoy it. It ungatekept it. Next, I'm going to talk about Level 0. Level 0 is the starting point, the place from the original image. It's the one that everyone pictures when they think of the Backrooms, with the yellow walls and everything. The community did build out a pretty detailed description of it over time though. Again, it's described as roughly 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms, which is a number that gets thrown around a lot, and it's kind of the point that it's so ridiculously big. It's not supposed to be escapable through sheer persistence. There are no doors that lead outside, there's no windows and no landmarks to navigate by. Rooms that seem to rearrange if you're not paying attention. The community refers to people who end up there as wanderers, and there are extensive survival guides written from their perspective. What sounds to avoid, what paths have been documented, what the extended isolation does to someone mentally. Most Backrooms content, especially the earlier stuff, is set here. It's basically just a lot of fan fiction. Next, we have to talk about no-clipping. The way you end up in the Backrooms is borrowed from video game culture. In games, no-clipping is when you pass through a solid object, walk through a wall, or fall through the floor, and you just slip outside the boundaries of the map that the game intended. And the Backrooms lore apply that literally. The Backrooms lore suggests that reality has geometry, and occasionally, you phase through it by accident. You don't seek it out, you're just walking somewhere familiar, and you step wrong, and then you're somewhere else entirely. It's a simple mechanic that works pretty well for horror because there's really no way to prevent it and there's no warning of it. It's really scary. Next up, I have to talk about the addition of entities. So if you remember, the original post ends with an allusion to something wandering in the Backrooms, and it never really says what that something is. But the community took that line and ran with it. Entities started getting added and documented. Things that lived in the Backrooms, each with their own behaviors, threat levels, and weaknesses. Some are aggressive, some are territorial but avoidable, some just exist in ways that don't fully make sense. The most well-known ones, Smilers, Hounds, and Skin Stealers, each have detailed wiki entries that are written really crazily, like really in-depth. As soon as the community started writing about the Backrooms seriously, people started adding new locations beyond level 0. The idea is just that rather than the Backrooms being one room that goes forever, it's a system of interconnected environments, each one its own distinct space with its own layout, atmosphere, and rules. Some of the earlier ones that got documented include a concrete walled industrial zone, a narrow overheated hallway full of pipes, an old electrical station, and an old abandoned office building. And we're going to talk about probably all of those more in depth later. From there, the community just kept building. Levels got numbered, categorized, and given safety ratings. Some are essentially open fields or outdoor looking spaces. Some are small and bounded, and others are infinite. The Wikidot's level format notes that levels vary a lot in size, danger, and habitability, and that some of the more stable ones have actually developed permanent communities of people who have been trapped and figured out how to survive long term. The level system is also what gave writers the most to work with. Each new level is basically a blank page for a different kind of environment and story, and you could just make your own level if you are one of these fanfiction writers. An indie game came out just 2 months after the original creepypasta and was praised for its atmosphere despite being pretty short. From there, several others followed over the next few years. The one that got the most traction is Escape the Backrooms by Fancy Games. It's a co-op multiplayer game where up to 4 players explore and try to escape through 30 levels, starting at level 0 and working their way through the system. It launched in early access in August 2022 and spent a few years in that state, fully releasing on October 23rd, 2025, after which it hit 30,000 concurrent players in under 2 days. It's not a particularly deep game mechanically. GameSpot gave it a 6 out of 10 and called the gameplay loop sparse, but it's been the main way a lot of people have actually walked around inside the lore rather than just reading about it. 2 wikis ended up becoming the main repositories for Backrooms lore. The Wikidot launched in 2022 with the explicit goal of having higher standards than what was already on the Fandom Wiki, which are the 2 that I was talking about. The Wikidot covers 999 levels, has a large social community, and runs on stricter quality controls, meaning pages go through a lot more extensive review before being posted. The Fandom Wiki is bigger in terms of raw page count, with level numbers running into the thousands, and it has a lower barrier to entry. You can post directly on there without going through a review process. The Wikidot operates similarly to the SCP Foundation, with multiple authors contributing different canonical interpretations of the same universe, and different canons can exist, together without contradicting each other. The 2 wikis really don't share lore. They've developed independently and treat each other as separate things. And then if you are new to the Backrooms completely, the Kane Pixels movie that's coming out, it has its own lore, and we'll get into that later. There's low-key been ongoing like low-level tension between their two communities about which one is the real version, and I don't like any of them personally. If you're a long fan of Poi, you'll know that one of my first big videos that blew up is called How the Backrooms Ruined Liminal Spaces. I love the Backrooms as an original idea. I just hate that it got turned into the SCP Foundation, where now it's just about what's the scariest monster I can think of and not about the actual existential horror that it was originally. But whatever, that's just me. I'm scared that the movie's gonna be like Stranger Things type shit. Anyway, next I want to talk about the Backrooms subreddit. r/Backrooms was created on May 17th, 2019, just 5 days after the original 4chan post. It became the main hub for early community building. People were posting liminal space photography, writing new lore, debating what counted as a legitimate level. By March 2022, it had over 157,000 members. As the level system kept expanding and the content got further and further from the original image, a portion of the community decided that they weren't interested in that anymore. A user named LitBeep launched r/True Backrooms, where the focus is entirely on the look and feel of the original 4chan image. No entries, no extended lore, just images that capture the same feeling as the photo that started everything. That split is still one of the clearest fault lines in the fandom. How much you can add to the Backrooms before it stops being the Backrooms and just becomes a generic horror thing, which I think has gone too far, but I'm not quite as conservative as the r/True Backrooms people. And now I am going to talk about Kane Pixels. In January 2022, a 16-year-old, and that's true, a 16-year-old, from Northern California named Kane Parsons uploaded a short film to YouTube called The Backrooms Found Footage. He'd come across the original Backrooms image on his computer in late 2021, and while learning the 3D software Blender, decided to recreate it as a short animation. He didn't expect it to go anywhere, but when it went viral, he was surprised to discover that there was already an entire fan community behind the concept, and that a portion of them felt he was doing it wrong, since his version didn't include any smilers or the standard level structure that they had built up. The video has since gotten over 70 million views. Rather than leaving it as a one-off, Parsons built it into a full series. Set primarily in the 1990s, the series revolves around a fictional research institute called Async, which discovers the Backrooms and begins sending in expedition teams, with consequences that spiral outward from there. It's presented as found footage, and the production quality, considering he was doing it alone as a teenager, is genuinely crazily impressive. The series ended up being largely responsible for pushing the Backrooms from a niche internet thing into something more mainstream. And the movie is going to be directed by Mr. Kane Parsons. So honestly, congratulations, dude. We got beef. I do not like your take on it, but impressive as fuck. This guy's awesome. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Level Fun. Level Fun is one of the more well-known levels in the Backrooms, and a good example of how the community took the concept somewhere unexpected. On the surface, it's a children's birthday party, a refurbished office space set up with party rooms, tables, chairs, confetti, and posters, with music playing from some other rooms. The catch is that it's completely overrun by partygoers, tall, yellow humanoid entities with a carved smiley face where their face should be, holding balloons. They stand around the rooms and don't bother you unless you get too close or make noise, at which point they chase you. The little smiley face symbol at the end of the name of this level is part of an in-universe bit. According to the lore, the partygoers have the ability to edit the Backrooms database and use it to make Level Fun sound safe and welcoming, always writing in an extremely cheerful tone and leaving that smiley face at the end of everything they write. The level was originally called the Party Rooms, but the partygoers kept changing it in lore. Level exclamation mark, also called Run for Your Life, is an approximately 10-kilometer long derelict hospital corridor with entities chasing you the entire way through. There's no exploring or figuring things out, you just have to run. Multiple entity types show up here, including smilers and partygoers. It connects to the pool rooms on one end and other levels on the other, so it gets used as a transit point, which means a lot of people end up having to go through it whether they want to or not. The end is level 601. It's a seemingly endless modern library, almost completely silent. Some areas measured at -6.2 decibels, with metal letters in the center spelling out "the end is near." It's a trap level. It looks like you're finally approaching an exit, but the geometry loops when you walk in one direction, and turning around puts you into a wall that wasn't there before. On top of that, wanderers can experience, quote, fake realities, which are personalized sub-areas that replicate familiar places from their own lives. And there's no documented reliable way out. The pool rooms are level 37, and they started as a single image someone posted. A render of an indoor pool space with white ceramic tiles, rooms slightly submerged in lukewarm blue-green water, light coming from somewhere but no visible source, completely empty. The community picked it up immediately. The rooms vary a lot in size and connect to each other in ways that don't really make sense, and none of them have any clearly identifiable purpose. They're too large to be functional pools. The water has Epsom salts in it and is described as having a calming effect. There are no hostile entities here by default. It's one of the safer levels documented. Smilers are one of the earliest entities that the community developed, and still probably the most well-known. The whole concept is that all you can see of them is their glowing eyes and teeth in the dark. They live in unlit areas and they're weakened by light, and a flashlight is the main way to keep them back. That's basically it. They show up across a large number of levels and are referenced constantly throughout the rest of the lore. Facelings is a broad category for any humanoid in the Backrooms with smooth, featureless skin where their face should be. Adult facelings are generally passive and won't bother you unless you provoke them. Child facelings are hostile and tend to show up in small groups. In some versions of the lore, they're former humans who lost their identity after too long in the Backrooms. On level 11 specifically, they've been documented living like a normal society, wearing clothes and keeping jobs and keeping hounds as pets, which is a separate and weirder thing entirely. Hounds are humanoid but move on all fours. They have long, matted black hair, oversized mouths full of jagged teeth, bony limbs, and completely white eyes. They're hostile toward humans on sight, though staring them down can briefly stall them. The main thing to know about them is the bite. Their saliva carries an infection that, if not treated within a few minutes, will transform the person into a hound themselves. They show up across a lot of levels and are one of the more commonly referenced threats in survival guides. Now, something good is almond water. Almond water is the main resource in the Backrooms. It's a sweet almond and vanilla flavored drink found in bottles, cans, water fountains, and sometimes entire bodies of water spread across many levels. Beyond basic hydration, it neutralizes effects from hostile entities, treats minor illnesses, and has been documented improving focus. Nobody in the lore knows where it comes from or why it's so abundant. Between colonies and outposts, it functions as a common form of currency. The Backrooms lore assumes that some people who fall in don't die immediately. They survive, and eventually they organized. The main faction of these organizations is the MEG, or the Major Explorer Group, which has around 25,000 members and maintains colonies and outposts across hundreds of levels, from small forward bases up to settlements housing thousands of people. Their stated goals are documenting levels, protecting wanderers, and finding an exit. There are other factions too, some allied with the MEG and some not, each with their own territory. The whole structure is what the wiki entries are written from the perspective of, in-universe documents produced by people who actually live there. On the Wikidot specifically, any page on the wiki can potentially be rewritten by another author, either with the original author's permission or if the original author has gone inactive. And rewrites can range from minor expansions and additions all the way to complete concept overhauls where the core idea goes in an entirely different direction, keeping only the same name and basic premise. The community has fairly strict standards around this. You draft the rewrite, it gets critiqued, get it approved, and then a staff member deletes the original page so you can use the new one. It's caused ongoing drama throughout the wiki's history. The most notable incident was when the author who had written a huge chunk of the foundational lore, including the original Almond Water, Partygoers, and Level Fun pages, had a falling out with staff and had all their pages deleted at once, leaving hundreds of dead links and plot holes around the rest of the wiki overnight. There's been a recurring argument in the community since basically the beginning that the lore drifted too far from what made the original post work. In 2021, a Reddit thread called "You Guys Ruined the Backrooms" got a lot of traction. The original concept was isolation and slowly going insane from seeing the same walls, and what replaced it was a wiki full of explanations, bestiaries, and rules. The more things got documented, the less unknown there was, and the less unknown there was, the less unsettling it became. Critics pointed out that most levels weren't even liminal anymore, they were just rooms with elaborate gimmicks, more like SCP entries than anything related to the original image. And this is the same tension that created r/true Backrooms. It's still a thing, and I was a part of this movement back in the day, guys. Go watch How the Backrooms Ruined Liminal Space. Actually, don't watch it. It's a bad video. It was a while ago. But after Kane Pixel's series took off in 2022, it caused a surge in Backrooms content on YouTube. Dozens of channels started doing their own found footage videos, lore explainers, level walkthroughs, original series. Some of the more notable ones included Async Research, Frag2, and Matt Studios, all doing their own takes on the concept. Quality varied a lot. The better ones built out their own consistent lore and visual style, and the worse ones were just really badly rendered Blender projects with ominous music. The YouTube side of the fandom operated mostly separately from the wiki communities, and had its own arguments about whose interpretation was most faithful to the original. Now with that, as the Backrooms got more popular, the content quality spread out in every direction. The community accumulated the same kind of low-effort stuff any internet phenomenon does. They had poorly written wiki levels, YouTube videos that were just repackaged lore with no original contribution, Roblox games with almost no resemblance to the original concept, crossover content that used the name and nothing else. Longtime community members were kind of realizing that kids who had never experienced the nostalgia the aesthetic was built on were adding content that completely missed the point, treating it as just another horror IP. The wiki mods ran periodic surges, deleting thousands of low-quality pages at a time, which itself became its own source of drama. On both the Wikidot and fandom wikis, levels got deleted regularly. Low-quality, rule violations, author requests, page purge events have taken out thousands of pages at once, and some of those have been referenced throughout the rest of the lore, leaving broken links everywhere. There's also levels that got deleted for lore reasons, like all the negative number levels were removed from the Wikidot after the concept was found to conflict with the Casper-Bray numbering system they use to organize levels. Some deleted levels get moved to free writing wikis and others just disappear. There's so many weird concepts with the Backrooms, like negative levels don't make a lot of sense, but then also time. Time moves weird in the Backrooms and it varies by level. Some places it feels slower, some places it feels faster, and in a handful of cases people have come back from certain levels and found that way more or way less time has passed than it actually felt like. It's tied into the broader geometry issues. A lot of levels don't follow normal physics, so time being inconsistent isn't really a surprise at that point. There's no reliable way to track it, and the wiki treats it as just another property that some levels have, like whether they have entities or whether almond water can be found there. It's just another characteristic of it. And another thing that's weird about the Backrooms is simulation theory gets brought up a lot. Since no clipping already borrows from video game logic, simulation theory was kind of an obvious direction to go. The In-Universe wiki has a whole page of theories about what the Backrooms actually is, and one of them is that it was a virtual simulation originally planned as a peaceful utopia before it was accidentally corrupted and started generating endless levels. Another says the front rooms, which is just another word for the real world, is itself just another level with nothing underneath it. Something that feeds into these theories a lot is the geometry. The spaces in the Backrooms don't behave like normal rooms, and the explanation is that the lore uses non-Euclidean geometry. The short version of that, because that's a crazy word, is that standard geometry assumes that space is flat. You know, parallel lines stay parallel, walking straight takes you somewhere new. Non-Euclidean geometry breaks that. It says that space can curve back on itself. In the Backrooms, it shows up as walking in a straight line and ending up back where you started, or a room being much larger on the inside than it looked from the entrance. Level 0 mostly works this way, which is why navigation is basically impossible. A lot of levels use it as a core mechanic. Spaces that loop, rooms that shift layout when you're not looking, hallways that get longer the more you walk them. One level that breaks almost all of these rules is the hub, which is one of the few places in the Backrooms that's actually stable and predictable. It's a vast underground tunnel network with concrete walls, asphalt road, yellow industrial lighting, with doors lining both sides, each leading to a different level. No hostile entries, considered neutral ground. The MEG has an outpost in here, and other groups have trading posts and rest stops inside it. It's the most logistical level in the whole lore because it's how people who have been stuck in the backrooms actually move around deliberately instead of just no-clipping and hoping. Speaking of no-clipping, if you're wondering what you actually pass through when you no-clip, that's called the void. The nothing between levels. Completely lightless, completely empty, no way to tell where you are. It's unknown whether running into another person there is just statistically impossible due to scale, or if every person experiences their own completely isolated version of it. Under normal circumstances, you pass through it instantly. If the no-clip fails and you don't make it to another level, you just keep falling, with time anywhere from a few seconds to what survivors have described as eons. And nobody has documented a reliable way out. Moving back to entries, skin stealers are one of the more unsettling ones, specifically because of how they operate. They're large, pale yellow humanoids with sunken white eyes. When they're not hungry, they just wander aimlessly. When they are hungry, they find a lone human, tear them apart, and wear the skin. The skin wearing is biological, according to the lore, which, I don't know, I love the Backrooms guys, but this shit's kind of stupid. Their body is covered in microscopic suction cup-like pores that grip and mold the skin until it looks identical to a living person, and then slowly digests it for about 24 hours. They can mimic speech, but don't understand language. They can just repeat things they've heard. One way to identify one is blood color, since theirs is translucent. And of course, there's a rhyme that circulates in the lore for this. Blood runs red, they're not dead. Blood runs clear, steer clear. You're rhyming clear with clear, bro. Like, come on. And then there are wretches, which are a different kind of threat, because they're not really entities to begin with, they're former humans. The process is called the wretched cycle, and it's thought to come from deprivation of food, water, and sleep. Isolation speeds it up. It goes in stages. Starts off as just irritability and itchiness, and then skin and muscle tissue start deteriorating in ways that don't follow any normal biology, and by the final stage, teeth and nails are falling out and regrowing in wrong places, eyelids dissolve, and the person is completely gone mentally. That's when they get reclassified as an entity. Wretches range from slow and barely mobile to sprinting with superhuman strength depending on how far along the cycle they are. Almond water can slow it down early but can't undo it once it's gotten far enough. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of, weird levels, but levels 0 through 8 are collectively called the main 9, the foundation of the whole system, the ones that were documented first and that everything else built around. In older interpretations of the lore, they were the only levels that existed at all. You already know level 0, I won't re-say that one. Level 1 is a massive concrete warehouse with a low-hanging fog, crates of supplies that appear and disappear at random, and the first place in the backrooms where long-term human settlement is actually possible. Level 2 is narrow maintenance tunnels packed with pipes. Darker, hotter, worse. Level 3 is an old electrical station. Level 4 is an abandoned office building, considered one of the safer levels and home to several major MEG outposts. Level 5 is a hotel, vintage 1930s architecture with a main hall, hotel floors, and a boiler room in the basement. Level 6, called Lights Out, is complete darkness. No light source works inside it and no entities have ever been confirmed to exist there, yet very few people who enter it ever come back. The darkness alone causes auditory hallucinations and paranoia within minutes. Level 7 is an infinite open ocean. Level 8 is a cave system full of oversized spiders. Each one gets harder to survive than the last, which is part of why the structure of the main 9 has always felt intentional to the community. It's kind of designed to be a gauntlet of sorts. How you move between levels is one of the more developed parts of the lore. No clipping is the main method, finding an unstable spot in a surface and passing through it, but it's not the only one. Levels are also connected through actual doors, elevators, hatches, holes in walls, bodies of water, specific furniture, and things that are harder to categorize. In the back rooms, intentional no-clipping is possible just by willing it in most levels, unlike in the front rooms where it's completely random. Each level's wiki entry includes a documented list of known entrances and exits, which specific surfaces to look at, what conditions trigger them, and where they lead. Some are reliable, some are random, some are one way. Getting back to a specific level isn't always possible once you've left, which is part of what makes navigation so difficult. The community has spent a lot of time mapping out these connections and building survival guides around them. And now I have to talk about sub-levels, which are exactly what they sound like. Levels that branch off from a parent level, share some of its characteristics, but are distinct enough to be their own thing. They're designated with a decimal number, so level 37.1 is a sub-level of level 37, and level 0.2 is a sub-level of level 0. They're usually smaller and more specific than their parent, often used by writers to add detail to an existing environment without changing the original page. Some are safer versions of their parent, some are significantly more dangerous. The pool rooms, for example, has a sub-level called the dark pool rooms. Same white tile and water, just no light and actively hostile. Sub-levels can have their own sub-levels too, which is how the numbering eventually gets really confusing. We already kind of talked about negative levels, but I gotta explain it here because this is where I explain it. Negative levels are levels discovered below level 0, numbered with a minus sign. Unlike the standard liminal positive levels, negative levels tend toward surreal and psychological territory. Liminality in them is more situational than spatial. They're generally less documented and harder to reach than positive levels. The characteristics shift the further down you go. Colder, more unstable, more disorienting. Some negative levels have been removed from the Wikidot entirely after the concept was found to conflict with their numbering system, like I mentioned earlier, but they do remain on other wikis and free writing communities. Now, enigmatic levels are another type, and they are levels that can't be given a standard number. They have mysterious or anomalous properties that make them hard to classify alongside normal levels, and are instead referred to by name or symbol rather than a number. The hub is an enigmatic level, level fun is one, level exclamation mark is one. They tend to be the levels with the most distinct concepts and the most memorable designs, partly because the lack of a number frees the writer from having to fit it into any kind of sequence. Some are genuinely strange spaces that operate on completely different rules. Others are just levels the community decided shouldn't be contained in a number. Now, I mentioned the MEG before the Major Explorer group, but I should probably get a little bit more in depth on them. The MEG is the main faction in the Backrooms lore. In universe, it started as an exploration outpost in 2012 and grew into a full organization. Their stated goals are exploring and documenting levels, keeping wanderers safe, and finding a way out. They're also the in-universe body responsible for writing most of the wiki entries. I think I said that earlier. But personally, I'm gonna explain it for the video because, part of the lore. Personally, I really don't give a fuck about the different explorer groups and outpost stuff. I find it so incredibly boring. It feels like season 5 of Stranger Things. But now into something that I really do find cool, which is survival difficulty. So every level on the Wikidot has a survival difficulty rating at the top of its page. It's a system that was supposedly introduced by the MEG to immediately notify readers of a level's danger, broken into 3 sections: safety, security, and entity count. The default scale goes from class 0, completely safe, no entities, no hazards, up through class 5, which is considered pretty much life-ending and to be avoided at all costs. Beyond that, though, there's a dead zone classification for levels where survival is essentially impossible. Some levels have custom classes for situations the standard scale doesn't cover well. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough is what level 0 actually does to you on a structural level, not just psychologically. On the Wikidot, it's documented as Phenomenon 15. This level creates a separate copy for each wanderer that enters, making it so they're unable to interact with other wanderers within it. So you're actually wandering a version of it that belongs only to you. Notes left on walls don't carry over. Sounds don't carry. There's a rare room called the Manila Room where this rule breaks and multiple wanderers can find each other, but it functions as a dead end. A rendezvous point for those who survive the trek, but no exit from the level itself. And there's a rarer phenomenon, Phenomenon 23, Everlasting Isolation, where a wanderer is placed into their own separate clone of the entire Backrooms, completely entirely devoid of other human beings or entities with no known way to escape. It's one of the bleaker concepts in the lore, the possibility that some wanderers arrived and have been completely, structurally alone this entire time, just going through the motions of a world that has no one else in it. This concept, broadly, is my favorite part of the Backrooms. To give you some poi lore, when I was a kid, I used to dream a lot about liminal space. This is how I got into YouTube, actually, is I looked up what my dreams were. But one of the ones that I had that I still remember so vividly is I was at my grandparents' house, and it was dark, creepy, it was gray everywhere, and I saw my grandma leading me down these stairs with these like glowing white eyes. She was just staring at me. And then when I got down the stairs, it was just an endless loop, an endless void of these, carpeted floors, and how I remember my grandparents' house being, where it just never ended. And it was just me being totally alone. Like I've dreamed I'm in the Backrooms before the Backrooms were even a thing. And I love that part of it. Anyway, back to my script. Whether hunger or thirst even work normally in the Backrooms is something the wikis don't fully agree on. Some accounts say you can survive for what feels like several months without hunger or thirst, though almond water can help you stay sane regardless. The wiki implies normal nutrition requirements do apply. Almond water has a nutritional label, starvation is listed as one of the most common causes of death on level 0, and the wretched cycle is explicitly triggered by deprivation, which only makes sense if food matters. But other canons lead in the other direction. Physics don't apply, so why would the physics of biology? Why would thermodynamics apply in the same way? The ambiguity is kind of the point, though, I feel like. The Backrooms doesn't answer its own questions. Whether or not you can starve depends on who's writing the wiki entry. Relatedly, the whole premise of entities, that there are actual creatures chasing you, is something a portion of the community, like me, has always pushed back on. The original 4chan post says, "God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby." It doesn't say you'll see it, it doesn't say that it'll attack. The r/true Backrooms guidelines explicitly state no entities. Their vision of the Backrooms has no levels, no creatures, just the original feeling. The original text only implies a presence, never a sighting. This bleeds into in-universe lore too. The wiki.'s level 0 entry notes that entities on level 0 are unconfirmed. Wanderers have reported seeing dark figures in the corridors, but these are possibly hallucinations. There's even a collective unconscious theory that frames the entire Backrooms as a projection of shared human psychology thanks to Carl Jung, which would make every entity a manifestation of fear rather than an independent being. It never became the dominant reading, but it never fully goes away either. Most levels of the Backrooms are infinite, that's the default assumption. Level 0 stretches beyond comprehension, level 7 is an endless ocean, and this distinction carries weight in the lore. The pool rooms complicate this further. The wiki. Entry argues they're neither infinite nor finite, but determined by the emotional state of whoever is wandering in them. The rooms keep extending because you keep feeling, and the level is effectively a projection. It's a third category the wiki didn't originally have a name for. The question of whether a level ends actually changes how you'd survive it though. Like an infinite level has no safe boundary, no guarantee that following a direction actually yields an exit, while a finite one can, in theory, be mapped. And if you're in the pool rooms, you're just fucked. Levels that fall outside both those categories are their own problem entirely. The main Backrooms wiki. Is not the only wiki. Though. There's a separate wiki. Called Forgotten Places, run by a user named Mr_Backrooms, and is built around a stated rejection of the current direction of the community, with the homepage explicitly saying that the wikis of today feel more like SCP clones than anything original. It launched between 2023 and 2025, focused on staying closer to the early documented levels from 2019, and building it out from there rather than incorporating the years of expanded lore. It's a small project, but a genuine attempt at an alternative, and the fact that it exists and was made at all says something about how the community continued to fracture around the question of what the Backrooms actually is versus what it's become. Both the fandom and free writing wikis host what they call joke levels, which is just content that's explicitly labeled non-canon and exists solely to be funny. The free writing wiki's joke section is particularly unhinged. There are pages created solely to make the reader laugh instead of being actually anything serious. Level 18 is called Memories, and the concept is exactly what the name suggests. The level takes on the appearance of a childhood memory. The age range documented is 2 to 5 years old, most commonly a preschool, daycare, bedroom, or playground. It's specific to each wanderer who enters. No two wanderers see the same thing. The level is completely devoid of life, just the empty space of somewhere you once were. Voices begin whispering to you after a while, your biggest regrets and mistakes, though the mechanism by which the level knows them is never explained. Some wanderers find it addictive and choose to stay. Those who exit come out changed in ways that aren't fully reversible. It's one of the more psychologically specified levels in the lore, using the particular texture of personal nostalgia as its horror, and this is one I would actually choose to go to, like hell yeah. For like an hour? Yeah, dude. And then we have level 14, which is called Paradise, and its wiki.entry entry is written entirely in the second person. Interesting. It's written in a voice that wants you to stay. The crimson grass, the crashing waterfalls, the eternally starlit sky, the bones of other guests lying peacefully in the soil. The level functions as a trap. Something in it makes you feel at peace, lifts the weight of thought from your shoulders, and makes leaving seem unnecessary. Wanderers affected by it have reportedly altered the wiki entry itself to remove warnings. The cult aspect is less about an organized religion and more about what the level does to people who spend too long there. They become recruiters, pulling others in convinced that they're offering salvation. Amor Incrementum, a group that appears across various wiki canons, takes this further. They operate as a theocratic agricultural cult who believe wanderers' bodies are borrowed from a divine biomass and must eventually be returned to it, and they will drag you toward that conclusion with complete sincerity, explaining their theology calmly while they do so. And now I gotta talk about persons of interest, or POIs. I'm finally in one of my videos. The wiki's POI system is its closest equivalent to named characters. Persons of interest are singular individuals of high importance in the Backrooms. Mostly humans, but not exclusively, documented because of their nature or their role in history, functioning like historical figures tied to specific groups, levels, or time periods. There's the party host, the de facto ruler of level fun, a 7-foot Irishman who's been there for over 250 years. There's a former service dog looking for her owner. There are MEG operatives with anomalous properties they gained upon entering. There are entities documented as individuals rather than species. The POI system lets the wiki tell stories about specific people without those stories contaminating the level or entry pages. It's the closest thing that the Backrooms has to a real story or cast of characters. Among the standard entities there are the dullers, and the dullers are one of the more unsettling for how specific their hunting method is. They are tall, gray, featureless humanoids with long arms, and they hunt by standing on one side of a wall and no-clipping their arm through to grab whatever is on the other side. If you see one face to face, it will run from you. The threat is never direct. It's always the wall between you. Direct confrontation does nothing, you just have to know which walls aren't safe to stand near. The wiki.entry notes that they seem to dislike almond water, making them one of the cases where the main resource of the Backrooms also functions as a deterrent. Now, level 27 of the Backrooms is called the Wood Rooms, a presumably endless labyrinth complex of wooden rooms and hallways, with a layout that shifts and changes in ways that make reliable mapping nearly impossible. It's essentially level 0 with the yellow wallpaper replaced with rotting wood, and the shift in material changes everything about the feeling. Where level 0 feels like an office building someone forgot to finish, the wood rooms feel like older, more organic, and less stable. The air is thinner. The lights go out sometimes and stay out. Level 6.1 is a sublevel of level 6, which means it's technically a child of Lights Out, the pitch black level where people simply disappear. But the snack rooms, which is the name for level 6.1, couldn't be any more different. It's described as an expansive food court, one of the only human-made levels in the Backrooms. Initially a bare concrete platform that the MEG developed into a fully functioning complex of restaurants and bars. Entities that would otherwise be hostile work the counters and behave like staff. Food restocks weekly. Normal water, which is rare in the Backrooms, can be found here. It's been called the Backrooms heaven by wanderers who have visited, which makes it one of the only levels where survival difficulty is genuinely 0. Level 22 on the wiki.entry is a multi-story parking garage, and for a while it was one of the most developed settlements in the entire Backrooms. In 1987, it was declared a small micronation called M-Stable, independent of any other faction. By 1990, its inhabitants have closed most of the entrances and isolated themselves. only beginning to negotiate trades with the MEG and other groups decades later. The current version of the level is Ruins. Collapsed structure, bodies intense, 50s era cars torn to husks. M-Stable is gone. Level 33 is the Infinite Mall. Near the entrance, it's an empty but intact shopping mall. Stores from the real world, food courts, normal architecture. Further in, things begin to decay. Water floods in, lights fail, mold spreads, the mental effects intensify. The further you go, the worse it gets, with no obvious turning point where you realize you've gone too far. The late 2020s of the real world are remembered by the community as a creative high point. The post-Kane Pixel surge had brought in enormous numbers of new writers. The Wikidot matured into a genuinely curated space, and the quality of individual entries was considered higher than at any previous point. The Wiki held its first award ceremony, the Backies, celebrating standout contributions from the year. This is when the A24 film moved into active production. A YouTube blog report noted that the Backrooms related content was viewed 2 billion times in the first 8 months of 2025. Whether the community sustains that or the film reshapes it in unpredictable ways, that part is still unfolding. And we'll see, I guess, when the movie comes out. Level 15 on the Wikidot is currently trimmed and marked open for rewrite, so a lot of what used to be there is gone. What remains paints it as an infinite series of futuristic white hallways with machines behind reinforced doors that nobody can identify or operate. The level has the same isolation effect as level 0. No two wanderers can meet inside it. What made it strategically significant is that quantum messaging technology, the primary long-term communication system used by factions in the Backrooms, was reverse engineered from the machines on level 15. Groups fought over access to it. The sublevel 15.1, Futility, still documents a raider coalition of roughly 17 people who go around destroying the simulation devices on the sublevel, citing moral objections as their reason. There was a war, but the main level war lore was in the trimmed portion that no longer exists. The Wikidot has a full multiverse canon where alternate realities bleed into and influence the Backrooms directly. But the broader community debate goes further than that. There's a persistent fan theory that the fandom wiki and the Wikidot aren't just 2 wikis about the same place, but 2 separate documented dimensions with the same name. Same core ideas, but different lore, different rules, different history. Given that neither wiki has a canonical explanation for why they contradict each other, the multiverse reading is as valid as anything else, honestly. Now, some people describe the Backrooms as purgatory. The Limina theory, presented on the Wikidot's level 0 page, frames the Backrooms as a prison created by unnatural forces, described as an Abrahamic interpretation of purgatory or hell. The page calls it the most prominent non-scientific theory within the Backrooms, despite being generally unfollowed by most major groups. The original 4chan post invited this reading from the start. The Backrooms is a place you ended up in against your will, can't find the exit to, and might never leave. If you wanted to write a purgatory, it would probably look a lot like that. Level 19, called Attic Floorboards, is a cramped maze of musty attic spaces with boxes everywhere. Remove an object from a container and there's roughly a 1 in 100 chance it immediately rots. The more interesting thing is under the floorboards, an orange glow that emanates from no identifiable source. It draws wanderers toward it, instills a false sense of calm and comfort, and then starts pulling memories directly from whoever gets close, rewiring those memories to be about the glow itself. The page's author note states that the glow previously infected the minds of others to spread knowledge of its existence, causing unsanctioned edits to appear on both this article and others in the database. The Wikidot page is written as a wanderer editing it in real time. Whether the edits you're reading are authorized is unclear. Now I have to talk about level 404. The Wikidot page by ETOISLE opens with this. Level 404 is the 404th circle of heaven. Don't you remember? Everything's lowercase. Reality is failing in the most perfect way. The 3D mesh glitches. Memories cloud your mind. It says you may find yourself developing a consciousness. Cut it out. Things are broken here, but it's your home. There's a girl referenced, a childhood digital heaven, code chiseled by the gods, laughter in hexadecimal, and then forgetting her forever. No bases, no outposts, no survival guide, it's just a poem written by someone inside a level that's already ended. Now I gotta talk about the whiteout and the blackout. The whiteout is a house where everything is white. Furniture, ceiling, floors, walls. Windows on all sides flood the level with blinding light. White noise plays constantly, no entities anywhere. Deep inside, there's a gray door. The blackout is on the other side of that door, and it locks behind you. The blackout is the same house, same layout, but abandoned and decayed. Cobwebs, burned sections, fragile floorboards, and every hostile entity in the backrooms. Every group that has entered the blackout has died. There are no confirmed exits. The only conclusive entry is the bride, a spectral figure in a wedding gown who follows you silently from a distance, sobbing quietly in whatever room she's in. Now, level 44 is a desolate retail outlet. Throughout its rooms, there is a coal-like fluid, unnatural viscosity, unknown atomic composition that corrodes cardboard and wood rapidly, and has been documented dissolving the walls and ceilings of the level itself. It grows over time. The windows display moving images of the front rooms. No one has ever been able to communicate through them, though. The level is theorized to be intrinsically connected to our reality in a way that no other level is. A group of 20 members was formed with the specific purpose of removing samples of the substance to slow the corrosion, though whether they've made any progress hasn't been documented. Now, there are also objects in the backrooms. Object 15 on the Wikidot is orange, slightly translucent crystals, 1 to 5 centimeters, called fire salt. And they're brittle. Throw them at something and they shatter, generating heat and burning sparks. Ingots above 50 grams explode like TNT. The most common weapon in the backrooms by a significant margin because they grow naturally on corners throughout the first 5 levels. Melt them down and you get pyroil, a colorless flammable liquid that smells like incense and functions as a gasoline substitute for any engine-powered equipment wanderers manage to get running. The fandom wiki has a guide to overused concepts that the community itself maintains, and it explicitly calls out vast forests with 0 or 1 unique properties as having been done to death. Level 14, level 23, level 32, level 39, and level 47 are all forests all on the wiki, and that's not even a complete list. The community recognized that it was a problem, documented that it was a problem, and then just kept making forest levels anyway. Now, I defined liminal spaces earlier, but I want to talk more about the literal definition of transitional space. Liminal is from the Latin limen, meaning threshold. The actual academic definition is a transitional space, a place you pass through to get somewhere else. Not spooky and not haunting, just in between. A hallway, a waiting room, the back area of a retail store where employees park carts before restocking the floor. The backrooms started as literally that. The back room of a building photographed mid-renovation, a storage area between functions. The aesthetic that built up around liminal spaces eventually drifted towards something eerie and surreal, but at its original core, the backrooms was just a really accurate representation of what that word actually means. A place with no purpose except to be passed through with nobody there. A recent Wikidot author specifically wrote a page complaining that liminal got warped to mean creepy when all it ever meant was transitional. The backrooms started as the most honest possible illustration of that word, and then sadly became something else. One thing that's really interesting about the backrooms is that you can enter through dreams. Specifically, level 18, Memories, can be entered by dreaming about it. Phenomenon 20, Recurring Dreams, documents multiple unconnected wanderers experiencing the same dreams that led to undocumented levels. Mr. Ferrante's Timeless Places wiki explicitly replaced no clipping with dreaming as the sole entry mechanism. You don't fall through a wall, you fall through sleep. Real people in the community regularly report having genuine backrooms dreams and take them seriously. The Fandom Theories page mentions a hypothetical future entity called the Lucid, someone who no-clipped while dreaming and as a result can move between levels at will. The backrooms and sleep have always been adjacent concepts. Both are places you end up without choosing to, and both are harder to leave than to enter. And like I said, I've been dreaming about the backrooms for since I was, 5 years old, dude. I love it. I think what's interesting is the concept that you can be immortal in the backrooms, or maybe you have to be. Several threads in the lore point toward wanderers being effectively unkillable or, at minimum, indefinitely sustained. The party host on level fun is over 250 years old, like I said. Wanderers from historically documented disappearances, Amelia Earhart, victims of the 1935 Yangtze floods, the crew of the Royal Merchant, are reportedly still alive somewhere in the Backrooms. The TV Tropes entry on the Backrooms specifically notes that falling into the void, quote, will sustain your life, giving you a cruel twist on immortality. The Limina theory frames the Backrooms as an afterlife, which would mean wanderers are already past the point where dying is possible. And the no starvation or thirst accounts from various sources suggest that the Backrooms simply don't let its residents go that easily. Whether that's mercy or horror depends on the wanderer, I guess. Now I gotta talk about two of the most disturbing levels. Level 998, Zenith, is a flat, blank space of cloud-like concrete texture with 3 zones. The first zone is completely safe and barren. The second zone is where every documented entity in the Backrooms appears simultaneously, including entities that normally only exist as single, unique individuals. There are duplicates of all of them here. The third zone is pitch black, devoid of all entities and sound, and you walk until your body gives out from exhaustion. Collapsing in the third zone makes you wake up in level 999. Level 999 is a floating tropical island in a starry void, with everything desaturated to complete grayscale. It doesn't change. Nothing lives there, nothing happens there. The page says, nothing new learned, nothing to take away, nothing of value, just the island. The only exit is a trapdoor at the center that sends you back to where you came from. Before Kane Pixels, before the wiki blew up, there was a specific window of time where the dominant Backrooms content format was simply gather screenshots of levels from the wiki, cut them together into a slideshow, and set the whole thing to Goodbye to a World by Porter Robinson. The song is the final track on his 2014 album Worlds, sung by a Vocaloid named Ivana, about an android girl saying goodbye as her entire world ends. The lyrics are just a few phrases repeated. Thank you, I'll say goodbye soon. Though it's the end of the world, don't blame yourself now. That combination, the moist yellow hallways, the empty pool rooms, the back corridors, the monotone fluorescent hum, with that song playing over it, landed so hard that it became one of the most widely shared aesthetic formats the community ever produced. The Wikidot's own archival video listing every single documented level used it as background music in the credits. It was the default Backrooms song before there was a default Backrooms song. TikTok still references it. On the old fandom wiki, level 45 was known as the Orange Store. Endless aisles, impossibly tall ceilings, and orange tint to everything. The vendor entities, faceling-ish, wrong proportions, were neutral during what passed for daytime. At night, or if you stole anything, they stopped being neutral. They hunted you through the store aisles until you got out. The level had a day-night cycle, which was just the lights cutting out. Someone documented building a fort out of the shelving materials to hide from entities. The roof had never been found despite someone reportedly building upward for a quarter of a mile. The level is completely gone from the current main Wikidot, which features an entirely different and unrelated level 45. Now, in May 2024, after years of treating the original photo as essentially unknowable, a dedicated Discord community traced it through the Wayback Machine to a March 2003 renovation blog for Hobbytown, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, a former furniture store at 807 Oregon Street being converted into an RC car raceway. The photographer was Bob Mazza. The camera was a Sony Cybershot DSC S50. The room no longer exists. The discovery unlocked the full renovation photo set, and when the community went through the companion photos closely, something had turned up that the famous cropped image had completely hidden. Security cameras. Camera mounts on the ceiling. The one image that launched an entire horror mythology deliberately excluded by cropping the detail that would have made it the most ordinary and mundane. Then there are also cases of real-life instances of the Backrooms. People have always reported this, not the Backrooms specifically, but the sensation. A familiar place suddenly feeling completely wrong. The uncanny valley of somewhere you've been 100 times that has somehow become other. Quora threads fill up with hundreds of responses from people who have dreamed about yellow hallways before they'd ever seen the photo. The PBS Monstrum episode notes that practitioners of reality shifting use no clipping as a lucid dreaming technique. intentionally falling through the walls of sleep. After Oshkosh was confirmed as the real location in 2024, people made actual pilgrimages there. The room is an RC track now. The carpet is gone, but fans showed up anyway. At least one documented video exists of a person standing inside Revolution Raceway, lining the camera angle up to match the original photograph, pointing at the structural ceiling poles that appear in both images, proving that they're standing in the same room. There's also a theory about Area 51, interestingly. From the start, there was a contingent of the community that insisted the US government knew about the Backrooms, that somewhere behind the fences of a classified facility, a portal had been open for decades. And then the comparison was made officially. The Backrooms Mythos Wiki notes that the horror concept drew comparisons to Area 51 UFO conspiracy from the very beginning. Kane Pixel's Async Research Institute leans into it directly, a fictional 1980s American research organization that deliberately opened portals to the Backrooms, then watched as missing persons numbers skyrocketed in the surrounding areas. The government knows about it theory is remarkably persistent across the community. Now I want to talk about one thing that the Backrooms gets compared to a lot. The SCP Foundation Wiki went live in 2008. The Backrooms went up in 2019. Both are collaborative horror fiction organized like institutional documents. Both rely on pseudonymous community contributors. Both build shared cosmologies out of individual writing submissions. The comparison was immediate. ABC News called both part of, quote, an emerging genre of collaborative online horror. The SCP Wiki hosted a forum thread discussing how to write the Backrooms as an SCP entry. SCP-3008, the Infinite IKEA, was the most natural parallel, a pocket dimension of endless commercial space with hostile entities. But here's where they fundamentally differ. SCP had significantly higher barriers to entry. One central wiki, rigorous critique standards, and a tighter editorial structure. The Backrooms fragmented across fandom, Wikidot, and dozens of independent projects with no central author and no ownership. What do you guys think? What do you guys like better? Now I gotta talk about chairs, which is interesting. The Kane Pixels connection starts here. His very first Blender scene before he had a video or a plot was an animation of a chair being thrown at a wall in level 0. That test shot made it into the final upload. And then there's Object 60 of the Backrooms lore called the Throne, a simple, dark green metal chair, indestructible, impossible to move from wherever it appears, cited across multiple levels over decades. An investigation by senior archivist Marquez eventually led him to a deleted Wikidot page, the Chair Room, now gone from the main wiki. The chair room was crammed with every type of chair imaginable, cycling between types every few hours. Sitting in different chairs produced different effects, personality transfers, visions through other wanderers' eyes, transportation to other levels. The room was guarded by the zealots of the chair, 50 wanderers who worship chairs as literal godlike entities and will attack anyone who insults chairs, entering an uncontrollable frenzy, declaring their devotion at volume until the victim either dies or formally renounces all other religions and accepts the chair as their savior. There's also the basement. The Wikidot's unnumbered basement level was originally written anonymously on the fandom wiki and adapted by a user called Dr. Bier. The idea is that it lies beneath most other Backrooms levels, the lowest accessible point, though the Backrooms doesn't actually guarantee a bottom. The page is structured as a real-time chat log. A wanderer named Havistride finds a small pitch-black basement that lights up when he enters. Below the first floor is a flooded section. The water looks like almond water, but isn't. Drinking it makes you more dehydrated, not less. Havistride wades through it for 2 hours anyway. The geometry is Ascherian. Stairwells that appear to go down loop back into the same floor. Sounds come from behind doors, footsteps, babies crying, and stop the instant that you open them. Havistride sees something in the water that looks like a drowned body that's been submerged for a week. He logs the last message when he spots an elevator in the distance and goes silent. The page also contains an epigraph about a Cincinnati bar, the Hawks and Chandler, where 6 workers died in a basement plumbing flood. 5 bodies were recovered. The 6th was never found. Level 38 on the Wikidot, Fold Point, was written by the same author as level 19, 999, and 427. Levels 0 through 37 have no definitive structure, and when they overlap to create their own entrances and exits, certain sections of all 38 levels end up existing in the same space simultaneously. All of it at once: the darkness of 6, the intense mold of 28, the decay of 33, the childhood memory rooms of 18, the arcade machines of 25, the entity from 22 that occasionally rearranges rooms. Every entity documented across the first 38 levels coexist here on the fold point, including entities that normally exist as singular unique individuals. There are duplicates of all of them. Every clock in the level shows the same time, March 31st, 2001. The date, level 16, no-clipped into the backrooms. Survival difficulty is class 5. No safe zone is documented within it. Now, there is a true exit, kind of. The community is split on whether the backrooms should have an exit at all. The fandom wiki's most prominent answer is level 3999, a seemingly endless modern arcade where completing a randomly generated list of tasks unlocks a glass door back to reality. Don't complete the tasks and walk through anyway, and you end up somewhere worse. A Wiki.dot staff member wrote plainly in a public forum thread, quote, "One of the most interesting components of the backrooms is that you cannot leave. Once somebody removes that element, many will be mad. Pages with exits to the front rooms get low ratings and deletions on the Wiki.dot consistently. The fandom wiki's exits to reality category eventually posted a notice. No new exits to the front rooms permitted under any circumstances, effective immediately." Now, like I talked about earlier, the void isn't a level itself, it's what's between them. Every time you no-clip successfully, you pass through it in a fraction of a second. Fail the no-clip and you fall through it indefinitely in total darkness and total silence with no point of reference, possibly forever. The fandom wiki notes that the void sustains your life while you fall. TV Tropes called it a cruel twist on immortality. But then comes in the Void Network Project. The Void Network Project was a small community effort to map the relationships between levels accessible through or connected via the void, an attempt to chart from inside nothing the web of spaces suspended within it. It never became mainstream Backrooms content. It didn't produce a wiki page that survived. It exists at the depth of this iceberg, because it generated enough to be named and referenced but not enough to be found. And whether it was ever finished isn't documented anywhere, but the Backrooms has a lot of those. And with that, guys, we are at the end of this video. Thank you for watching The Horrors of the Backrooms. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoy the movie when it comes out. Let me know what you guys think about this. What's your opinion on the Backrooms? Do you like the new stuff? Are you a true Backroomser like I am? Let me know. Both are obviously valid. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great night, and sweet dreams.